Welcome
Welcome.
to the Grow People Podcast. You have tuned your dial to the Grow People Podcast.
Dial. Do we do dials anymore?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's Pastor Jason, lead pastor of Revolution Church, going into 14 years of doing that. My name is David Stein, and I am the campus pastor at our Canton location. Yeah. The purpose of the Grow People Podcast is to help
Grow people.
Thank you.
Remember Dial soap?
I do not like Dial soap. My wife tried to buy Dial soap the other night, and I said no. Stope.
Yeah,
I've heard it both ways. I don't like Dial soap because it reminds me of growing up, and that's all we had: the yellow crusty bar of Dial soap.
Yeah,
and bad flashbacks.
I don't know if anybody would say they liked Dial soap. Yeah. That's like saying I like Clorox or something like that. I mean, it was the staple.
Yeah, I like good smelling soaps.
Remember Irish Spring?
Oh,
that green bar?
Yeah.
That was high class.
It was.
Dial was like down here. You had Irish Spring, you had made it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a commercial where the guy was cutting up a bar of soap, and he would show you all the lines of the different fragrances in the soap.
Yeah.
And I think he had a wife in the commercial, and she said, "Smells like a man, but I like it too." I don't think her voice was that deep, but
did she say it like that? Because she was either really sick or, yeah.
Soap. What do you use now?
Irish Spring. Now I use. Oh gosh. What is that called?
Kirk's?
No.
We use the Kirk's.
Everyman Jack's.
Everyman Jack, okay.
Yeah, that's what because they have one that is like coconut oil. So I like that.
Yeah, makes your skin supple.
Smooth on my skin.
Yep. So now you know that at least 50% of your pastors bathe. Yeah. So we'll have to get Pastor Chad and Pastor Thad on here to talk about their favorite soaps.
I use Adam Sandler's conditioner that he, from Billy Madison. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
You don't remember that on Billy Madison? He talked about shampoo and conditioner, which one was better.
Okay.
It was like a whole bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to catch that.
You should, so I'm surprised you haven't. Your comedic background.
Well, I'm sure I saw it, but it's not like The Godfather where I've seen it 150 times. Pre-salvation. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about today, this came in from a steward.
Okay.
There was some steward participation. I was meeting with this steward last week, and at the end he said, "Hey, can I ask you one more question?" I was like, "Oh, here we go."
And you're like, "I don't know. Can you?"
May you?
Yeah.
And he said he and his wife were out to dinner. They were at a four-top, so a square table.
Okay.
They were sitting at a four-top.
Okay.
And they were sitting at the 90-degree angle to each other. Not across from each other, but at the angle.
Yeah, on each side of the table.
On each side of the table at the corner.
Yeah.
And he asked if that is considered side sitting.
No. It's a great
okay.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Because you're not on the same side.
That's correct.
You're at a 90 degree. I'm down with that because I don't have to. That's kind of like a compromise, I guess I would say. So because I don't have to turn a full 180 to see the person. It's just a 90. So no, Lindsay and I will sit on like that. In fact, we just had lunch at a four-top last week, and we sat like that.
Okay.
So I feel like that is acceptable.
All right.
But no steward should ever side sit.
Wow. Is that in the covenant?
It needs to be added.
The expectation is to give, serve, be in a community group, and do not side sit.
Yes. Well, we played golf together on Friday. And me, you, Jackson, Bill, who's part of our church. And after we played golf, we went to a wings place there in off Sixes. And Jackson and I were sitting at the, I'm like you're supposed to be. I'm on one side, he's on the other side.
Okay.
And then this couple comes in, and it was the wings place there right off Bell's Furry.
Bell's Furry.
And and I don't know if you've ever been there, but
in the public shopping center.
Yeah, but it has like a high. It's kind of a weird. Like the tables around the edges are like built into the wall, but it has like a high seat.
Yeah.
Not so it has a high top table, but one is like in a chair and the other's kind of built in. It's kind of weird. And so this couple comes in and I can see they sit kind of like catty corner to us, or 90 degrees. And because we're in like the corner, and they come in and initially they were going to sit across from each other. And I thought, okay, good. And then for whatever reason, they decided to side sit, but then it was really high. So it was even like more awkward because they were right next to each other, super high. And I just looked at Jackson and I was like, oh gosh. And then that's when I had my parenting moment. I was like, Jackson, you see that? Please don't ever do that. Like
always discipling.
Yeah. Whenever you go out with your girlfriend or when you get married, like, please don't do that. I would have not have raised you well,
What was his response?
Oh, he looks at that and he goes, oh, I would never do that. That's stupid. Or something like that.
Did you tell him I do it all the time?
No, I didn't. I don't want to talk bad about you. So we had a whole conversation.
Let's not talk bad about
it. I'm joking. But I don't know. It just felt even more weird. So no, I think at a 90 degree, again, because you're not on the same side. But this is why it's awkward to me. So let's take let's say it was a six top or it was a rectangle table. Would anybody sit on the same side together on that same table with nobody else sitting there? Would you sit on the same side?
Well, yeah, I've done that. Yes, we have done that.
This is just getting worse and worse.
Yeah, we've done that. As if we were waiting for another 4 people.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what side sitting feels like to me. It's like you're waiting for someone else to come and they never came.
No, really, we have friends. Yeah. They're on their way.
They're waiting.
They're going to be late.
Like, oh, they stood us up again.
Maybe that's why every server that comes over to us when we're side sitting says, "Are you waiting for someone else?"
See, exactly my point.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what they were thinking. They're like, "Why are you doing this?" Because you have a whole bench over here that's available.
Oh, that's hysterical. Okay, all right. Side sitters unite.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
and right sitters unite.
Side sitters and right sitters. Yeah. That's going to be a church split. Why'd you guys leave the church? Side sitting.
Yeah. They excommunicated us for side sitting. We're anathema. Yeah.
Couple things we want to get to today on the Grow People podcast. And this is a way that Pastor Jason is going to grow this summer. Every summer, Pastor Jason takes a teaching break, and that is very intentional. You've been doing that for years. And this year, especially over the last 6 to 9 months, the board has been discussing a way for you to not only get rest, but also to grow. Yeah. And you shared this at our team member party on Sunday, and now we're going to share it to all of you about Pastor Jason's sabbatical this summer. It's really a great thing for the church.
Absolutely. Yeah, we share this at the team member party, which is one of the reasons why you should serve on a team, because you get information, prior to, because we always want to communicate to people, what's going on. And then we try to communicate to those that are, serving first, and then now our podcast. And we'll talk to the rest of the church about this soon. But yeah, typically every summer I started this 4 or 5 years ago, taking a preaching break, which is normally a 4-week break in the summer. And that's intentional, one, to just give me a break to get out of the rhythm of preaching, again, for my own soul, because those that have ever taught, even teachers that teach, on a regular basis, you're always just thinking about how to teach. You're thinking about this for someone else. So it's a good rhythm for me personally to take a break so that I can just spend time with God. Then, I typically take a vacation and then also plan and kind of dream and strategize for the future of the church. And so I'm working principle in a book that I read years ago. It's a very, very popular business book called E-Myth Revisited, where he talks about working on something instead of working in it. So my preaching break typically is a time for me to not be in it, but kind of work on it. So we've done that. Several of my mentors had told me about that. But then also what's typical in church world is every 7 years, a pastor will take a sabbatical. And that comes out of the principles found in the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, where how God told the people of Israel to take care of the land. And so every 7th year, they wouldn't farm the land at all for the year. And God would always promise to give them extra crop on the 6th year to prepare for the 7th. And so they would take that year off. And then that principle has been applied, again, for a long time in church world, to where not that a pastor gets the whole year off, but sometimes it's anywhere from 3 to 6 months sometimes in churches. So I've been in ministry now for 25 years.
Wow.
And I've never taken one. I've never taken a full sabbatical. And the church I was on staff at before Revolution, I was there for 7 years and was scheduled to take my first sabbatical. But then I came here and there was no break from there to here. And then I've been here now for 13 and a half years. So again, not a bad thing. And, but talking with our board over the last really year now, we started having this conversation last May, and even debated about doing this last year. But felt like it was better if we took some more time, planned it out, and then just extended my preaching break. Because again, the church is used to me taking this break in the summer. So instead of doing that in addition to, we just combined it. So yeah, this summer I'll be taking not a 4-week preaching break, but a 10-week sabbatical. And that will start the last week of May and then be all of June and all of July. And like you said, this break is not just it's not just a preaching break, and it's not a vacation. I mean, I will take a week of vacation as a part of it, but the main reason is, and I said this at our team member party, it's kind of 3 levels, and even explain this to our staff and the board.
First of all, you want to talk about what this is not?
Yeah, I can say that.
Okay.
I can say what it's not. Yeah.
Because just in case you're listening, you're wondering before we get into this, okay, what is this absolutely not?
No, it's not a vacation. It's not just that. It's not me going and preaching somewhere else. I won't be preaching anywhere else. And it's not me going and interviewing anywhere else.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. And I wanted to say that at the team member party, because anytime you get out of a regular rhythm, which again, me taking a break in the summer is a regular rhythm. But I wanted our church to know that I'm not taking this break because, something's massively wrong with me or the church or my marriage or anything like that. I'm not looking to leave. And that's why I said, I'm not going to preach anywhere and I'm not interviewing anywhere. The goal of this is to come back healthy, rested, so I can continue to lead Revolution. Right. That's the goal. And our board is gracious enough to allow me to do this. And again, we planned for this last year, and even thinking about the calendar, and it's funny, even finishing up the Gospel of John, so yeah, nothing negative about this at all. And I want our church to know that, because this is, I'm not going to come back and have some big announcement, about my future or the church's future, like that.
And it's easy. I get it. It's easy to let your mind wander. Once a month we have Welcome Track Session 3, and I teach it during the 11:15 gathering. So Dave Arbogast or Meredith, our ministers, will host in the auditorium during the gatherings. And invariably, someone will text me that afternoon, "Hey, didn't see you at church today. Is everything okay?" Yeah. Yeah, I was upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. You're here. Well, even like earlier this year, during Abide, I had my school, because each semester I have a week-long school. And typically that has been in like the March time frame, but this year it was earlier. It was in January. So I had my week of school, and I was gone for a week. But when I came back, I got sick. And so then I missed another weekend, which was our closing out of Abide with our Abide night. So I missed the Abide nights because I was sick. So it wound up being 2 weeks that I wasn't here. And then people were like, is he okay? What's going on? Is something wrong? It's like, he was at school and he was sick, like, no, there was nothing negative. And I get it.
Yeah.
We just live in a world, where we're always bombarded with that. But we even said that to our church, like, hey, Pastor Jason's at school this week. And then he got sick when he came back. So we communicated that. But yeah, people just, again, sometimes that's just where the mind goes. So we wanted to be upfront about this one.
Right.
Like, nothing's wrong. Again, this is actually, if you think about it in your life, it's like doing regular maintenance on a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's far better to have a maintenance schedule of checking things as opposed to just running, and then your car explodes.
Right.
So the purpose of a sabbatical is that, and even my preaching breaks, to where it's a schedule that you're on that allows you to be healthy for the long term. So yeah, this is what it's not, is nothing negative, and what it is positive. And so again, it's a 10-week break. But what's different about this versus just my normal preaching break? Again, in my preaching break, I normally, last year I actually went to mission camp 1 week, which I joked I'm not doing that this summer because it was
break.
Yeah, it was hot. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I love our students, and mission camp's such a great week. But it was one of my 4 weeks, and it wasn't restful at all.
It was 120.
It was like there was literally what was it called? There was not a heat wave, but it was like
a heat dome.
Heat dome, like over where we were. So typically on a preaching break, I'm not preaching. I'll take vacation. Then, like I said, I'm working on things for the church. But this one is different in that, and one of the reasons why it's extended is I'm going to be doing some specific coaching and counseling on, and this is what I was saying, on 3 different areas: myself personally, then my family, so like marriage and family, and then my leadership. So actually, when my family's at mission camp, because Jackson, my son, he's taking my place as a mission camp leader this year, which was awesome because he went last year. It was his last year as a student, and now he's going this year as a leader. So that week while they're at mission camp, I'll be spending 3 days like at a counseling intensive with a ministry in Florida that is specifically designed for pastors and those in leadership. And again, it's just personal counseling and coaching, kind of going through a process. Again, not because something's massively wrong, but I don't know how long I'm going to live, but let's just say I've lived half my life so far. Well, again, there's habits and things that you pick up that you got to work through. And so I wanted to start my sabbatical time working on myself. Well, I'll take the first 2 weeks. I won't go anywhere. But then that week I'll spend 3 days with a licensed counselor. And again, just kind of working on myself, just talking and kind of going through a personal coaching. It's based upon the verse in Hebrews 12 where it says, throw off the sin that so easily entangles you and run this race. Keep your eyes on Jesus. So that's kind of the focus of it, which I'm super excited about that because, again, it allowed me to just me as, not even me as a leader, just me as a Christian, just me as a follower. So that's how I'll start. Then we'll go on a vacation as a whole family. And then a couple weeks after that, Lindsay and I are going to meet with a life coach that does life plans. And so we'll do a 2-day process of life planning, which we've never done that before. I mean, Lindsay and I have always gone to counseling and kind of worked on our marriage and different things. And I've mentioned that many times from stage. But what's really cool about this one, actually, it was kind of a God thing. A pastor that used to be on staff at Saddleback Church in, a large church in Southern California where Rick Warren is or was. He was there for a lot of years, and I got to know him before I came on staff here, and him and I had actually done some coaching together in the past. But when I moved here 13 and a half years ago, I just got super busy, and we just kind of fell out of contact. And so I felt like God put him back on my mind, and I reached out to him, and this is what he does full time now. And so he was like, yeah, actually this is kind of in my wheelhouse now. And so Lindsay gets to go with me on that one, which I'm super excited about. And it's a really powerful, kind of 2 days where you really just kind of, again, holistically look at your whole life, what's going on, and then kind of map out a life map, a life plan for the rest of your life. And so I'm super excited to spend time with Lindsay working on that and talking through that stuff. Then after that, I'll go spend a week in a week-long leadership intensive with Henry Cloud.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. He's got an organization called Growth Skills, and there's different things that he does, but there's one that's a week-long thing called Ultimate Leader or Ultimate Leadership. And this isn't just for pastors, but really kind of anybody in a leadership, can be marketplace or ministry, which is really focused on kind of the broader scope of, leadership and being a better leader. So I'm excited about that because, again, that's the kind of the three, like me as just a person, my marriage and family plan, and then my leadership. Mm-hmm. And those weeks will really kind of take up about half of my time on sabbatical, which there's a pre-work I have to do for all of those things, and then some coaching coming out of those things.
Right.
And so it just kind of worked out. And this is why last year, even when our board, we first started talking about this is why I wanted to wait till this summer so I could kind of put a plan together. Mm-hmm. And because typically on a sabbatical for a pastor, that's kind of what you do. Like some guys will take a sabbatical because they want to go, like my pastor in Texas years ago went and spent like 3 months in Oxford because he was taking a class. And then I think either writing or something. And so you kind of do different things, but typically you want to do something during that time focused on your own growth and health. And this kind of just gives you a chance to do that. So when I come back from that, I'll, download to our board. Here's what I learned. Here's, how I feel like I grew. Here's kind of my plans, moving forward. And then just spending a lot of time with the Lord during that time also for Revolution, again, because the goal of this is for me to come back healthier and then being able to continue to lead the church in the future. So I'm excited about that because as I think about the future of Revolution Church, there's a lot of things that we've started to put into place that we've talked about that we just haven't fully gotten to yet. Mm-hmm. Again, right. Just because in the day-to-day of ministry. And so there's a lot of things that I'm excited about for the future of our church that we get to work on. And so that's part of what I'm going to be thinking and praying about as well is like, all right, Lord, how do you want us to do this? Because, by the time, I'll turn 45 in September of this year, September 12th. So everybody mark that down too. Remember? But, as I think about, the next 20 years in the life of our church, that really puts me at 65, which I know you're early 60s, and we've had this conversation about how you're thinking about.
I know you're all shocked.
This season of your life. So I'm excited to kind of think about that. Mm-hmm. Like this is kind of a, midpoint again. It's like, okay, what do I feel like, or what does God want the church to look like, over the next 20 years?
It's a very, very wise thing to be thinking that way. You're thinking about not just your immediate future. Mm-hmm. You're thinking about the future of the church. You're thinking about the future of your family. Yeah. And also preparing for an eventual transition.
Exactly. We're all an interim at whatever we're doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't typically think that way. Because we just don't, honestly, we don't think about eternity enough and don't think about, as the Bible calls our life, it's but a vapor, So I won't be even though I'm not interviewing at other churches this summer, I will not be the pastor of Revolution forever. I mean, I am just an interim. Now, I hope that interim continues for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
Of course.
So do we.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my goal. Well,
I'll be living across the street. I'll be coming over
That's
here.
right.
I'll
Yeah.
be a greeter.
Yeah, that's right. At the assisted living place for those that not just like in a tent across the street.
Which would be fine too.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a then I lost my train of thought there.
We're just an interim.
Yeah, we're just in interim. Yeah. So I think it's important to think that way so that I'll be a good steward of the time that I do have, And again, whether that's a marriage or a parenting or your job, you're not going to be in that role forever. You're just not. And there's going to be seasons to that. And so there is a stewardship to our life, which stewardship just means, which is, you mentioned our steward at the beginning, which is why we call it stewardship at our church, not membership. Because stewardship denotes the idea of responsibility. I've been entrusted with something, and therefore I'm going to be responsible for how I handled it. So yeah, I want to steward my role well. And one of the ways that I can steward my role well is realize I'm not going to be in it forever and start to prepare for the future. And that means raising up other disciples and leaders and pastors. And so, this is why it's a great time to do it. One, just from my longevity in ministry, but two, to think about that future and think about succession planning. It's never too early to think about that.
Right.
Again, I hope, Lord willing, I'm still the lead pastor for the next 20 years. But you got to start thinking about that now.
Yes.
And thinking about, okay, what is our eventual plan, moving forward, and how can we structure the church in such a way where it's not dependent upon me, even to carry the primary load of teaching. We want to raise up other teachers and carry the primary role of leading. We want to raise up other leaders, which is our whole multiply vision. So yeah, I think it is really healthy. But again, I think the biggest thing that I've realized is, and it really became apparent to me over the last couple years, because everybody knows about COVID in 2020, which we're 3 years removed from that now, starting. But the last several years were just about surviving, just about let's just get through it.
Get to the next day.
Get to the next day. And we even said back then, we don't know who's a part of our church, who's not. We don't know how big our church is anymore because we weren't seeing people. And again, God has been so gracious over the last 3 years to not only get us through that, but we're in a very healthy place as a church and staff. And I think that's why this is also a great time, because now it's like, okay, kind of closing the chapter on that. We survived, we made it through, now for the future. So it's a great time for me to take a break and, again, work on myself and my own leadership so that we can continue to dream and plan about the future. Because I can't, and this is what I was saying, it became apparent to me, I can't really lead the church to somewhere I'm not going or haven't been.
That's excellent.
And so I have to have a reservation, or not a reservoir of that in me. You know what I mean? Like, because it's already growing in me. And so that's really, again, what this time is for. Not only am I not interviewing somewhere else, but the whole point of this is for me to come back full and rested so that I have the resources necessary to lead our church for the next 20 years.
And if you're listening now and you're thinking, what is the best thing for a church? You want healthy pastors.
100%.
You want healthy pastors. Unhealthy pastors will cascade to an unhealthy church.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons this is such a good thing for the church. Again, not that there's anything wrong.
No.
This is just going to be fuel for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Again, if you think about it in terms, it's like how counseling was stigmatized for so long. People thought if you were going to counseling, something was majorly wrong. And again, going back to that whole kind of, car maintenance thing, well, it's like, But if I'm just taking my car to the shop to get routine maintenance, nothing's wrong. I'm actually doing preventative stuff, to where now counseling has been, thankfully, far less stigmatized, to where now going to a counselor, of course, there's things like that you might have to do that you're processing your past. Like I started that at 25, and the first counselor I ever met with, because I had just only been married 2 years, and it brought up a lot of, unhealth. So my first counselor was about processing on my past. Like it was traumatic, But ever since then, now counseling is more preventative, just working on things. And so again, if you think about it from that perspective, not only is nothing bad, but it's actually better to work on yourself when nothing is falling apart, when things feel good, because then you're being preventative.
And that's the position the church is in right now, where nothing's falling apart. And because of your leadership, this allows you to go and do this. So let's talk about the church for those 10 weeks.
Yeah.
We're not shutting down.
No. And I laid this out again at our team member party. It'll be 10 weeks. We'll kick off the summer with one of our worship weekends, which is typical. We do that around this time of year.
That'll be a Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah. Which is always a great weekend, because again, it's extended worship. We take communion together. It's just a kind of a real ministry time, praying for each other. So it's just become something really, really special. So we'll kick off those 10 weeks with that, and then we'll close those 10 weeks with that, which will be the last weekend in July. So that's 2 of the 10 weekends. And then in between, we'll have 8 weeks where we will have other communicators beside myself, which again is typical in my preaching break. And typically those 4 weeks is you, Pastor Chad, Dave, and Jeremy, our student ministers. So the 4 of y'all will still speak, but then we'll also bring in 4 of our church planters.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited about that for 2 reasons. One, because it helps our church hear from other pastors, outside of our church, which is a good perspective. But 2, these are pastors that we're investing in.
Right. This is family.
Yeah, this is family. This is like cousins. You know what I mean? That through our church planting network, we have sent out these guys to go plant churches in other areas to multiply. You know?
Yeah, these are not guys we do not have relationship with. We have strong relationships.
Exactly.
With.
Yeah, and we meet regularly and talk regularly, and it's really amazing to me. Not only because of that, like it is again kind of extended family, and you get to see what God is doing in other places, but to know that our church has had a direct effect on these guys. Through our network, through my relationship, coaching them, helping them, again, investing in them, just like other pastors have done in me. This is just kind of a real strategic way to show our church impact that our church is having that they may or may not know. And that's something we want to continue to highlight a lot. And what's really cool to me, these 4 guys, 2 of them are local, like, Atlanta metro area, one in Johns Creek, one in Dallas. That again, part of our local church planting network that we're financially supporting. Then one is getting ready to plant a church in Texas, in the Hill Country area in between San Antonio and Austin, that came out of our church planting network. He's actually launching next year. He's doing a residency there now, that we're going to help. We have been supporting and will continue to help support. So that's kind of like national. Obviously in the continental United States. And then one is planting a church in Scotland, which again came out of our church planting network. He used to be on staff at Westridge for a long time. Him and his family moved to Scotland this year, and they're in the process of beginning the planting process. I just said process twice, of planting the church there. So that's international. And this, we have our churches, our Revolution churches in Kenya, but this is not a Revolution Church, but it comes out of our network, and we're helping support. So he'll be here. He'll actually be the very first one to kick us off.
I'll kick it off, and then he'll be here.
Well, I was saying the church planters. Yeah, worship weekend, you, and then Paul. And I joked at our team member party, even though he's planting a church in Scotland, he's not Scottish. so he won't have an accent. Yeah, and everybody was like, said the same thing. Like, I think everybody wanted to hear it.
Can he do an Alistair Begg impression?
Maybe. He may have been there long enough now where he can, he might throw it in.
He was the second pastor I ever saw live when I got saved.
That's pretty incredible. He's one of the best ever.
Yeah, I went to a church, got saved. Well, I didn't get saved at church. Got saved on a Thursday, went to church on Sunday, and that day the pastor said he was taking a sabbatical.
Interesting.
And he said, I want you to do one thing. I want you to come back next week. And I came back, and it was Alistair Begg.
Those who don't know, I mean, he's a Scottish guy who's been here in the States for a long time. But yeah, phenomenal preacher.
And we'll get into what we want for our church over those 10 weeks in just a moment. But continue.
Yeah, so Paul is his name. He'll be here. Again, he was here in Georgia for 20 years. And so but him and his family live there now. And so he'll kick us off. And then Dave will preach. And then Chris from Hope Church in Johns Creek will preach. Yeah, he preached at one of our Abide nights. Then Jeremy, and then Greg from Creekside Church in Dallas, Georgia. Then Chad, and then Dakota, who's planting a church in Texas. And then we'll close it out with the worship weekend. So it's really cool to me is like we have worship weekend, then one of our staff, and then a church planter, then our staff, then a church planter. So it just fell that way rhythmically.
And we're not going to publish a schedule. This isn't like buying season tickets to the Braves where you pick a game here, pick a game there. No. We want you here every week.
Yeah. Well, like I told our church, or told our team members, and I'll say this to the rest of our church. Yeah, we want you to be here, attend, and celebrate because I want everybody to not only cheer on those communicators, but especially for the guys coming in from the outside, I want them to know how amazing our church is, and what I get to see every week.
Right.
And so, yeah, I want our church to be here, to attend, to celebrate, to cheer for them in the same way that you would listen and engage when I'm communicating or somebody else on staff is.
Yep.
Because I want them to know how awesome our church is.
Yeah, be a champion for Revolution Church this summer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which that was really 3 things. We can just get into that since you mentioned it. Like 3 things I'm asking the church to do this summer. Which one we're already kind of mentioning. But the first one is to pray for me and my family because, again, we're doing this strategically, and so I want to approach it strategically, and I want to hear from the Lord. I want God to work in me, and so I'm asking our church to pray for me and my family. Lindsay will still be around some in because we still have Give a Kid a Chance and some other things that she's heavily involved in. She won't be here every Sunday, and so you might see her some, you might not see her, but they'll be, and my kids will be around. Because they won't be with me all the time, so they're not going to just be gone for 10 weeks. But again, pray for them. Please don't, you don't have to bombard them with questions. Please, just say, hey, we're praying for you guys. Or like, where's Jason? What's going on? So that's just an easy way to help us in praying for us, care for us. And then secondly, pray for the church. Because there's always a little bit of hesitation, even pastor friends of mine that have not taken a sabbatical because they're afraid of what's going to happen while they're gone. The Bible speaks a lot about shepherds protecting the flock from wolves, and even goes so far as to say that wolves will rise up from your own people and attack others, and so you have to be. So as pastors, we play this protective role. So pray that our church is unified around the summer. Again, that no divisiveness comes out. What I think I said at the team party, no disruptions and no disunity. Ministry's still going to go on.
Yeah.
We've got some big things happening. We got mission camp. We've got Give a Kid a Chance. There's a lot of things that go on in the summer. And so it's still a very strategic time for us. We have a great staff and team members that we trust to execute all of that. But pray for our church that we'll be unified around this, that there's no divisiveness or disruption. And then thirdly was stay engaged through 3 specific things: attending, which is what we were just talking about, attend regularly. And I know our church, a lot of people take vacations at different times. I get it. That's totally fine. You should. But attend regularly, continue to serve, and then give. Because those 3 things really are what fuel the life of the church, or really 4 things: prayer,
yes,
attending, serving, and giving. So if our church does those in these next 10 weeks, or not the next, because I'm still preaching for the next 2 weeks, I'll finish out the Gospel of John. And then during that 10 weeks, we're actually going to it's just a series on parables. And so that I didn't say that at the team member party, I forgot. But each pastor so it'll be the parables is the theme for the summer, but then each pastor will take a parable. And so that way there's kind of a theme to it, but then there's some freedom within that. Mm-hmm. So each one will take a different parable, teach on that, which are short stories that have a principle, or a teaching in it. So again, I'm excited about that. I'm excited, for our church to hear from different voices. Again, I feel like obviously as the lead pastor, one of my main jobs is the preaching of the word, which is why I do it more than anybody else does. But it's also good for the church to hear from other people besides me, because you get different perspectives, which is why I always enjoy taking a preaching break and when I don't preach throughout the year, because I get different perspectives. There's things that you and Chad and Dave and Jeremy and these other guys would say that I wouldn't say,
right?
So it's always good for that as well. And so, those 3 things specifically are 4, again, praying, attending, serving, and giving. If we do that well, then our church will continue and be fine.
Yeah. And it's not something to apologize for.
No.
It's something to celebrate, to be a champion of. When I call first-time guests on Sunday, I'm not going to apologize. Hey, the regular guy wasn't here today.
Yeah. He'll be back in August.
And if you bring somebody to church this summer, you don't have to apologize for it.
No.
We do recognize, and this is something that I have said to Pastor Jason in private, so saying it in public, it's not blowing smoke. We have a world-class teacher every single week.
Thank you.
And we should never take that for granted. But hearing the perspective of other pastors, other speakers, is simply to hear the gospel.
Totally.
We are a gospel-centered church.
Yeah.
We present the gospel every week. There are churches that don't do that.
Yeah.
And that's why we can never take that for granted.
No, which is why one of our culture statements is don't get the wrong 5 letters.
Right.
It's JESUS, Jesus, not JASON. And again, it's funny, I've said that for a long time over the years, and some people take that as me being somehow like an arrogant statement. I don't mean it that way. Because I want to put the right emphasis.
Yes.
Not always that movie with Jack Black, the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yes.
So we want to, put the right emphasis. You're here to hear from Jesus.
Yes.
And obviously God has called me to be a teacher. And so we want people to love Jesus. It's okay if they like me or like you or like other communicators. That's fine. But we want them to love Jesus. So we gather as the church every week to hear from Jesus, to hear, because he is the word. We are simply the messengers and the communicators. So that's why I think it's also healthy, like I said. So we don't apologize for this. This isn't a bad thing. This is great, which is why we've been doing this rhythm of taking the break in the summer. And what's amazing is every year when I come back after my preaching break, I talk with people that started attending while I was not here. And then I'll meet them either in Canton or in Jasper. And they'll tell me, we came when you weren't here, and we didn't even know that you weren't like they came back just because of the experience they had with Jesus, not when I was here, but from another communicator. And they're like, oh, we didn't know that David wasn't the pastor or Chad wasn't the pastor. We didn't know who you were, and then you came, you're like, oh, okay. We didn't. So that's a huge compliment to me because again, they felt the Holy Spirit. That's what we want. not coming back for a particular person or even a particular program.
That's right.
Again, I think a lot of times people make decisions like that about churches of, oh, do they have this program? And then that's what causes them to church hop.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, it's about the presence of God.
Yes.
Did you feel the presence of God? And do you feel like God is calling you to this family,
Mm-hmm.
To this local church? That's what makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we always say the best compliment we can ever get is when someone says they felt the presence of the Holy Spirit here.
That's right.
And we've gotten that even from people that don't even speak English.
Yeah.
Because they just felt the presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's what amazes me is the fact that God would even use any of us is a shock.
Yeah.
And again, this is why it's healthy for me to even go away to remind myself. Like I was thinking about this yesterday. Well, I've thought of this several times, but I wear glasses. Everybody knows that. But on the back of my ears on both sides are indentions from the microphone that I wear on Thursdays and Sundays. Because I wear it so much, it literally indents into my skin on both sides, just like your glasses do on your back of your head. So I preach so much, I have microphone indentations behind my ears.
It sounds like a commercial. Do you have microphone
I
indentation?
know it does, yeah.
Call your doctor now.
But I thought about that. I was like, if I'm not careful, I'll be defined by those marks.
Whoa.
Whoa. I'll be defined by the marks of what I carry.
Mm-hmm.
I carry the burden of a microphone, but I am not that.
That's correct.
And that's why it's so good for me to not preach for 10 weeks. And so it'd be interesting. I'll give an update when I come back on my ear indentations in August if they're gone. Or it may just be so ingrained in my skin now because I've been wearing the same headset basically for, even 7 years before I got here. So I've been wearing the same kind of headset for 20 years. But again, I think that's the danger, not just in ministry, but in anything that we do. This is why parents struggle when their kids leave.
Yeah.
The whole empty nest syndrome. They're like, we don't know who we are because we've been parents for so long. Well, yeah, because you lost your first love. You lost your first love as a couple. Then you just started getting into the function of being a parent. And a lot of people really struggle in their relationships when their kids leave. It's the same kind of thing in ministry where my first love has to be Jesus.
Yep.
Not what I do, not being a pastor. And so, it's funny. I've been thinking about that because I can feel them. And if anybody wants to feel them, they can, which would be weird. But still.
We don't put that off.
No. You can come down front, shake my hand, and feel my ear indentations.
We have campus safety.
They would probably tackle you if you tried to do that. But again, that was a physical reminder to me that I am not what I do.
Right.
And I am a child of God. And I think it's so healthy for all of us to have that realization.
That is excellent. So years ago, a friend of mine sent me a blog, 11 ways to care for your pastor. And I only remember the first two. for the first two were pray and show up.
I was going to say pray and gift cards, but show up is good too. That's number 3 is gift cards.
Yeah. So that's the encouragement, and that's it's more than just an encouragement. It's a mandate for us because I am a steward of this church.
Yeah, me too.
And I show up here not just because I'm a pastor.
Yeah,
and it's my job. This is my church. This was my church before I was a pastor.
Exactly.
And I showed up.
Yeah.
So the mandate is to be engaged with the life of the church throughout the summer, whether it's sabbatical summer or not.
Yes, exactly.
And we're excited, and we will champion this. There is something that we can wrap up the show with that some of you may know, some of you may not know. It's kind of a good news, bad news. The good news is if you go to the Canton campus or have anything to do at the Canton campus, or you're dropping kids off for mission camp, or you're coming to give a kid a chance, the intersection of Highway 20 and Union Hill Road will be completed this summer. That's the good news.
That's the good news.
The bad news is the intersection at Highway 20 is going to be shut down.
Will be closed.
Yes. So from the light at Highway 20 to Union Hill Trail will be closed. But I'm going to be preaching on the cost of discipleship. Cost of discipleship is you're going to have to take a detour.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to go down to East Cherokee or Scott Road to get to church. Not a big deal, but we do want to communicate that, and we'll be communicating that in several different ways.
Yeah, and again, those that attend our Canton campus, it's a part of all the highway construction on Highway 20. So yeah, the good news is it's coming. Like hopefully it's coming soon. It's like a movie theater. But they've told it. So this will happen the end of May.
Yeah, May 29th-ish.
Yeah, and they're hoping to get it done in 60 days or less.
Yeah, they have some incentive.
They have some, which is typical in construction world, to get it done sooner. So it will be closed for a large portion of June and July, which they asked us very graciously, say, hey, when is a good time for y'all? We said the summer. So our goal and their goal is to have it done before August hits again. So yeah, just for people to know that. Again, good news is this will all be much better, and there'll be multiple turn lanes coming in and out and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So it's a great thing. But just like anything in life, you got to get through the construction part of it.
Yes, good illustration. There is one way to heaven, but many ways to Revolution Church. So there you go.
But please don't come through the neighborhood.
Oh, do not unless you live in Forest Creek. Do not use that as a cut through. You want to be a good neighbor, and we'll be sending out maps. I think everybody has a portable cellular device that will give you some what is GPS?
Global positioning system.
Global positioning system.
Yeah.
I've heard it both ways. Okay. That is today's show. Excellent stuff. And I'm just reminded of something you said many times for years. If we're not resting in him, we're not resting.
Yeah.
So rest well. Our producer, Brian Damerow. Our key grip is Jakub Puszczakowski. Kuba. Our head of doctrine and theology is theologian. Our chief evangelist, salvation. Our backsliding prevention officer is lukewarm. Our translator is lexicon. Our lineage specialist is genealogy. Our director of Swedish witnessing is Bjorn again. Our reformed theology advisor is Calvinism. Our expert on Russian eschatology, Pitov Hell. You have to say it that way.
You have to say it with a Russian accent.
Our director of holiness is mortification. Now the new one is from a listener and a steward here at Revolution Church.
All right.
Sent this in actually yesterday.
All right.
He reminded us that mortification has a wife. And so mortification is married to a woman who is filled with life. And her name is Vivianification, or short, Vivification. Well played.
Viva life.
Well played, Don. Well played.
Yeah.
Our staff counselor is Les Moody. Our director of tithing is Tim Percent. Our nativity coordinator from France is Beth Lachem.
I still feel like that should be a Yiddish coordinator.
She's French-Yiddish.
She's French-Yiddish.
Yeah, Bethlehem. Our co-pastors of plagues are Manny Locusts and Lance Boyles. Our Irish eschatology professor is Mark O. the Beast. And heading up our legal policies and procedures department, also from France, Stone Table. For transcripts of the show,
was that new last week?
That was the new one last week, but the new one this week was in the middle because it had to come after mortification. Yeah.
We need a Scottish one since we're going to.
We do.
Our church
we
band
do.
there.
I will work on that.
Okay.
For a transcript of the show, just right. Oh, by the way, we will be doing the podcast all through the summer.
Yes, I thought you were going to mention that.
And these church planters will be guests on the show.
Yes,
so we'll find
that.
out what's going on in Scotland.
Yes,
and how we can take a mission trip to St. Andrews. That would be that would be a lot of fun.
We can do some Scottish witnessing.
Yes. For a transcript of this, which is what I was yelling on Friday when we were playing golf. I was horrific. For a transcript of the show, just write down everything we say, and the best advice ever is
trust God and take it out.